Mr. Warren, you know, I'm saving you, Jeff, because you over here looking like a professional, so I know you're going to raw, you know. So I'm saving you for last, and we're going to do Mr. Bowtie Warren Feaster, ex-military. Awesome, just graduated, just got that big bachelor's. About to go on to bigger and better things and start on with counseling. But I'm going to let you tell your story. Go ahead.
Well, since you mentioned the bachelor's degree, it actually just came in the mail about an hour before the show.
So I know you pumped. Woo!
Yes, it'll be right there on my wall at the beginning of the next year. Once I buy the plaque, it's going to go in. It's going to go right there. I might have to find my associates and put it next to it, but I'm so happy about this bachelor's. Hey, I started my bachelor's degree in 2005 when I graduated with my associates. So,
wow.
yes, that's
fast.
Yes. You earned that bad boy. Can't nobody take it from you. You earned that.
Yes. The time I was the first on, I couldn't go to class, so had got to deal with soldiers. But I am Warren, Mr. Bowtie Feaster. My passion is marriage. I'm actually starting my master's degree in January at Liberty University to study marriage and family therapy. My business motto is the center of everything is family. I am just like totally in love with marriage, totally in love with relationships. And so I wrote a book entitled Marriage is Work, You Get Out What You Put In. The interesting thing that a lot of people don't know, and I'm gonna share with you that are on here now and you that are watching, is the ring set is actually my wife's wedding set. I use her wedding set in the picture. A lot of people don't know that. I like to say that, but it's a 5-year project. This was a 5-year project. It started simply because during my anniversary month, and I still do it to this day, I would just post a lot of relationship information on Facebook. And that's when I would get the most calls, the most texts, the most comments. People would DM me. People, would always, if I worked around them, they would make comments about my comments. And, that's what it really all started. And the first time, it was my wife who said, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. Now, growing up, it was my sister who was the writer. So I never even thought about writing. Writing was never in my glide path. I never thought about it. It was my sister. So the first time my wife said it, I didn't think anything about it. I didn't think anything about it because, like I said, I never considered myself a writer. The next anniversary, when I started doing it again and started seeing the posts and started paying attention, then I listened to my wife and I started writing it. And the reason why it took me so long is because my book covers issues that families are dealing with, that relationships are dealing with, that me as somebody as a lover relationship and have been talking to different couples my entire life as far as I can remember, a lot of things that are hurting relationships are not being discussed. There's a 6-week program where you can go through for marriage counseling. And one of the subjects is finance, where if you're not having financial problems, why are we going to spend a week on finance? And so that's what my thought process. I wanted to write a book that was going to deal with the issues. I titled it, this is like the 10th title. And then I'm glad I ended up with Marriage is Work, because I wanted people to understand as soon as they look at the book and understand what it's about, that marriage is work. We spend more time searching for the right house. We spend more time searching for the right car. We spend more time looking for the right cell phone provider than we do our spouse and our mate.
Wow.
We spend a lot of time looking at, the divorce rate, but why not look at the ones that are married? And so this is my thought process. This is my mindset. And I want marriages not to just survive. There's a lot of marriages that's been out there and they've been surviving 15, 20, and 30 years. I want marriages to thrive. And the great thing about going from surviving to thriving is you don't have to start all over. You just have to start. And that's what my book is about. I cover some stuff in here. The best comment that I heard was a friend of mine who was recently divorced. She had been divorced about 5 years. And so being a good friend of mine, she supported me. She purchased my book. She said, Had I read your book before I got married, I would have never gotten a divorce.
Mm.
And if I ever get married again, I would never get a divorce. And honestly, that right there is by far the best comment that I've heard. And I've heard some great comments about my book, but that by far hit me the most. But it's a small book, it's an easy read, it's practical. I talk direct. I don't beat around the bush because there's too many of that stuff going on as it is. So Marriages Work, that's the first book. I'm actually pre-COVID. The follow-up, Marriages Work, Find the Balance, was supposed to have been out already, but COVID happened, so I had to push it to spring of next year. So, but I'm just that much in love with marriage and relationships that I wrote the book to strengthen and build marriages.
And you're starting a class.
Yes. It's called Filling in the Cracks because I want people to understand that over time, your foundation can have cracks in it. And you don't have to allow cracks to stay. You can actually, just like when you look at a house and there's a crack in the foundation, there are people that come in and they'll fill in those cracks. Well, it's the same thing in your relationship. So right now it's a 3-hour course that I'm doing I'm doing an hour each day on Facebook, a private group called Filling in the Cracks. And I'm dealing with 3 chapters in the book, 3 chapters that I'm very passionate about. I'm ending with my favorite chapter, The Past Before Me, talking about how you have past relationships that are affecting your current relationship. I've counseled so many couples recently, and I asked them, do you even know how many people in your marriage right now?
Whoa.
Because you keep bringing up this man, this woman, this relationship, this and that, and you're not even talking about the person that you're married to. So there's a lot of things that are going on in our prior relationships that we're bringing in our current relationships, and it's unfair to your current relationship. So yeah, that Filling in the Cracks is something that I'm doing it on Facebook, and I'm actually sending it out to a lot of organizations and a lot of churches because I want to help people to fill in the cracks. Like I said, I want marriages to not just survive, but I want them to thrive.
I'm sorry, I have to chime in real quick. My fiance is sitting right next to me. He's starting something right now. Right now, he's starting something. Because when he said something about past relationships,
yes,
and I looked at her and she's pointing at me, and I'm like, oh really? So we're about to mute this. We're about to talk this out right now.
Oh my God!
No, don't mute it. Let me hear it.
Hey, you just start with a live session. What?
Right.
Are you available? Do you do private sessions by Zoom?
I actually do. Yes, I do.
Definitely picking up that book. I'm sorry, I'll leave you alone.
I love it because I like my niece. I saw one thing my niece wrote one time, and she said, if the light bulb goes out in your house, you don't get a new house. You fix the light bulb,
Yes.
So you got to do that maintenance.
Yes.
Maintenance.
Yes.
Warren, I like the idea of why you're doing the book that you did about marriage, because it's sort of the same idea that we were thinking about, instead of always talking about the drudge and the dread and the despair, to talk about the joy.
Yes.
And it is true. Yes, some marriages do continue, and I am blessed to have one that has continued for a long time.
Yes.
And you do have those cracks, but it's better to fix those cracks than to go look for a new house.
Woo-wee.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for that because, I'm newly married. I just got married in July, and nothing is perfect, but you keep working at it, you keep pushing at it, and even seek help, which you do, which is your lane. My question though is, when it comes to marriage, I always start the concept of, I want to go to, when I have an issue, I want to go to the person who instituted the marriage, which is the Word of God, who instituted the first marriage with Adam and Eve. So how much scripture do you use in your counseling sessions, in your book, or if any at all?
Now, I'm going to try not to contradict myself as I explain the answer to your question, but I'm not being contradictory at all. My book is 100% biblically based. The last chapter is entitled, You Must Seek a Higher Power. And my first appeal is to those of us that are Christians. I am a diehard Christian. I don't know if you see the prayer hands behind me, but I am a diehard Christian. So the book is biblically based. When I first started writing the book, it was just Christian marriages. I only want to deal with Christian marriages. Where in my pursuit of my degree, I took a class on domestic violence. And the first chapter of that class changed my perspective on marriage. They talked about, at this time, it was before, now we got the LBGT, whatever, they should call the alphabet people. I can't keep up with the acronyms, but now we have that community and they're building in their momentum. But this was at the beginning of it when it was first starting to birth. And at that time, if there was a same-sex relationship that got into a domestic dispute, there were no laws to help them. So you had, same-sex couples that were going through abusive relationships. There was no courts provided to help them. The police could only come in and do a little bit. They really had to work it out on themselves, and it caused a lot of ruckus. And that's what this book explained in the beginning of the class that I took. And as I was looking at that, I was like, wow, I can't exclude other couples. I can't exclude non-Christians. I can't exclude them. If I'm such a lover of marriage, then I have to include them. So the book is 100% biblically based, which I say up front, but I don't use any scriptures. I use the principle, and that's to appeal to everyone. So it's an inclusive, exclusive book. It's designed toward I had a same-sex couple to purchase my book, and I have no problem with that, because marriage is marriage. I feel how I feel about marriage, and I'm a 100% Bible believer. But at the end of the day, when you look at the Institute of Marriage as according to the courts and to the laws and to the United States, then guess what? When we look at those numbers and those statistics, they don't separate them between heterosexual couples, homosexual couples. They don't do that. So when we look at the Institute of Marriage, we have to cover everybody. So it's 100% biblically based, but I don't quote scriptures. It's just the principles throughout the book.
I wanted to say something about that real quick. I'm sorry, I know it's not my lane, but and I know it's a really unpopular thing for me to say. I'm not exactly supportive of the LGBT community or whatever. However, at the same time, I feel like the God that I believe in would want you to be that way. I feel like let's say you don't like hear me and you don't necessarily support it, but you don't have to be against someone or with to want to help them through what they're going through. If they see that they want to marry same sex, this is me telling what I feel based on the religion that I have, giving you that advice for you to use whatever you want to, to make this beautiful union of yours go smoothly. That is probably the most Christian thing that you could have done from that aspect. And I really respect that. That's awesome. That is awesome.
I'm speechless.
Love is love. What people want to do, who they choose to love, is not my business. But at the end of the day, if you close your eyes, we all have the same feelings. We have feelings of love, happiness, anger, grief, affection. So who you feel these have these emotions toward, that's not my place. I've never walked in your shoes. I don't know what makes you tick, but we all have these same group of emotions. All of us do. Now, some may be more acute than others, or we may project more feelings or certain feelings more than others, but we all still have them. So for you to write the book and make it all inclusive, I think is a smart thing, because we all have those feelings. And if you can help someone, help them,
Totally, because respect is respect, and that's one of the Bible principles, right? Respect.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, when you think about the fruit of the spirit, it doesn't matter who you're sharing that fruit with. The fruit of the spirit applies. It applies. So, amen. I know that. Now I'm wondering, do you marry people?
I do.
Right, because as a person who not
Well, let me
ordained, but what do you call it?
I am a minister. That's why I can do the counseling, even though
Okay.
I'm not right. I'm not a licensed counselor yet, but because I am a minister, I can do biblical counseling, which I do, and I can marry couples, which I have.
Right. So as a notary, like I was able to marry a couple, but then I thought, wow, then wouldn't you want them to make sure, as a person who's able to marry people, you want to be able to make sure that what you put together stays together.
Yes.
And, you know, I think also, well, what do you feel about this? Because I feel it's important for people to get counseling before you have a problem, to actually look at what we're doing and what they say in the Bible, count the cost, right? Because who will build a building or who will build a house
Yes.
without first, seeing if they had enough, if they had what it
Well,
takes.
if I marry a couple, there's a 6-week session that is mandatory. It's 4 couple sessions and then 2 individual sessions, one with each spouse.
Right.
And that is mandatory before I married a couple. It's mandatory. Based on a couple of situations I've had to push it out to now. It must be done at least about 3 to 6 months prior to the wedding. So that's just learning experience that I learned. You can't do it the 6 weeks before the wedding, but
yeah, because you might have to hold off on buying them flowers, sister.
Against protocol, I married my cousin. You're not supposed to counsel family members and right. But he wanted me to marry them. They had been together, and I hope he don't mind me putting his business out. And if so, hey, charge it to my head, not my heart. They had been together for 7 years, and now they decided that they wanted to get married. And so the only person he thought of was me. And she already coming in felt as if it might have been a disadvantage because we were family, and she did not see the benefits of counseling. By the end of the session, because when I do counseling, I don't come in cookie cutter. We cater the counseling session in the direction that you want, And so we discuss some issues and identify some things. And by the end of the session, which they celebrated a year or 2 years, I think it's 2 years this past August. And she still says to this day, I'm so thankful for the session. You identify some things. My cousin even says we would not be here, we would not be married, and we would not be as strong as we are had it not been for you. Wow. So I strongly, another couple that I counsel, they honestly, they did it because, again, they wanted me to do the ceremony. And at the end of it, they was like, wow, because I don't come in, there's a 6-week schedule that you can do. We're going to talk about this and this and this and this. When you fill out my paperwork, it asks you, what do you want to talk about? And then in the first session, we discuss we just talk. And I've had a couple of couples that wrote down certain things, but those were not the issues. And so we had to talk about what issues came up. Again, if you want the relationship to thrive, you have to identify some things. And in 2021, what I will start doing is on every anniversary of the couples that I've married, they get a free 1-hour counseling session.
Mr. Bowtie, I want to ask you one more thing. Obviously we know about what's happening with COVID-19. Obviously, there's been a lot of domestic violence and things like that have occurred throughout COVID during the time, especially in marriages going on now, because people now they stuck together. They can't get out like they used to want to get out and whatnot. So my question to you is this: if you're marrying someone, right, and let's say one is a Muslim and one is a Christian, and they're both very strong in their faith, how do you bring that union together when some of the very foundational things, core parts of these religions are so different? How do you do that? And so to speak, it's an unevenly yoked situation. So how would you work a situation like that?
I had have known I should have had workout clothes on. I wouldn't have put this bow tie on.
Ooh, got to sweat.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I have thought about that, and personally, I would have a major issue with doing it. I'm gonna be honest. I would have a major issue. However, again, because I'm such a lover of marriage, I will do the sessions. I will counsel them. We will talk about the difference in cultural beliefs. So I'm gonna be honest like this. That situation is no different, honestly, than any other situation. If you look at it from the same aspect as you have one that want children and one that won't, it's the same thing. If you look at it as, religion is a lot more passionate because we hold it more dear, but really it's still an issue that divides the couple in such a way that it will continue to cause turmoil throughout the relationship. And so that's what we would deal with. I know that there are couples out there in different religions and they survive and they thrive. So it is possible. That's why I can remove myself out of it and do it, but it is something that will have to be dealt with. What about a mixed couple where you got, a black and a white? Or what about a couple where you got one from the suburbs and one from the ghetto? It's all the same thing. You have to deal with those issues that are going to cause problems in that marriage and in that relationship. Now, could I marry them? Probably not, but I can counsel them.
And why are you saying you couldn't marry them? Like it's a different.
So if I'm going to marry you, I have to believe that you are standing on the biblical truth of marriage. So that means, like he said in the scripture, that is unevenly yoked. So I can counsel you through your marriage, beginning of your marriage, but I can't marry. I cannot perform the ceremony. And that's my personal belief.
Now my question was deep, but not as deep as that one. That one, y'all might have to talk later about that. But mine was, being people that are seeking counseling. What if one partner does not want you to participate in counseling? Would you take that as a sign? Like if they refuse to counsel? Because I know during my marriage, I wanted counseling. And it was like, good, you should do that. And it was like, no, we both need to do it. And that lack of willingness to participate, I feel like that's a huge deal.
I love your question, First Lady. I love your question. I get that question all the time, so I love answering that question.
Oh.
Because, all right, so let me say this. When I first got married, I didn't know what I was getting into. So I searched the Bible. I searched the Bible on marriage. And I understand biblically the role of the husband and biblically the role of the wife. And because I understand biblically the role of the husband and biblically the role of the wife, then I can counsel a couple and only have one of the couple in session. The goal would be to help them identify their role and their responsibility biblically in the marriage. Because if I'm counseling the husband, and by the way, before I say any more, I've already dealt with that and currently dealing with that. But if I'm dealing with the husband and I explain to him biblically that you are the head and you are to lead, then if you are leading, then people will follow. we follow bad leaders because leaders lead, even if they're bad.
Right.
If you are the wife, biblically, you are the influence. And then I can show you biblically how your influence works with your husband, then I can work with you too. Faye talked about Esther. That's exactly what she did. She filled the biblical role of a wife and used her influence to change a nation. So I have no issue with only one of the couples wanting to do counseling. That's a common recurrence, honestly. That's easy. You know, if you're willing to come and if you're willing to put in the work, then that's fine. The very first couple that I counsel, I only counsel one. I only counsel one. And when I got to them, one told the other that by the end of this year, we will be divorced. They are married over 20 years now. So it's not an issue if one wants to go. It's an issue if the one that goes is willing to do the work and understand your role in the marriage.
Boy, we were not expecting to get this today now, were we? Woo, that's a good. Any more questions? I think it's amazing. So you've been counseling far longer than 10 years. You've been counseling for some time. How long have you been a minister?
I've been a minister 23 years.
Okay, that explains it. And how long have you been married?
25 years.
And that's why we're doing a class or a show on January 7th about relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to rock that.
I've been counseling. Are you ready for this? I've been counseling couples. My first remembrance of counseling couples, I was 14 years old.
So it's a gift.
Yes. I am operating my calling. Yes.
So I have a question. I'm sorry, I have a question. So you've been doing it for a while. Do you see a paradigm shift or a shift in how people view marriage? Like you have older individuals and then you have young people. And then the two-pronged question, do you see young people wanting to get married at all?
Let me go put my workout clothes on.
I'm sorry, man, but see, this is your fault. This is your fault. You shouldn't have had a book so interesting and have a good story. So shame on you, bro. It's your fault.
Well, listen, so this is the interesting thing about my book. I normally go on post and sell as a vendor. And I will tell you, if a couple has been married over 10 years, I have a very difficult time getting them to buy my book, to the point to where I don't even ask people that have been married over 10 years to buy my book, because based on the name, they do not feel like the book is for them. My book feels very easy to the soon-to-be married, newly married, and thinking about divorce. Those are the three categories that purchase my book easily, very easily.
Because they don't feel like they know everything already.
Right. Now, what I have, as far as the paradigm shift, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. So you have those that I'm a glump our group into those older than us, because it's easier that way. We have a different perspective on what marriage is. Totally different perspective. We had long marriages that we saw. My grandparents, before my grandfather passed away, were married 62 years. They were my model marriage. They still are my model marriage. But now when you look at between my grandparents and the next model marriage in my family is me and my wife at 25 years. Yes. So you're talking about all my aunts, my uncles, my mom, then you're talking about all of my cousins. And so you have my grandparents and you have me. So if you look at that aspect, then there's a different mentality. The younger generation sees marriage totally different than what we see it. Now, this is the thing that this right here bothers me. People are still getting married. People are still getting married. I did 2 weddings last year. People are still getting married. The problem is we are not explaining what marriage is. And so people are getting into marriage thinking it's like buying a car. Where actually they thinking it's like leasing a car, not understanding that it is a covenant. And so people think, and this is the part that I'm trying to get out to people now, and I'm starting to push this out and starting to say this. People think divorce is the end of your marriage, which in fact it is not. Because if marriage is a covenant, then only death gets you in a covenant and only death gets you out of the covenant. Wow. That's a biblical marriage. So the younger generation are not being told and not being shown what a biblical marriage is. If God designed the marriage, this is how he designed it. This is how he structured it. We can revamp it, rechange it, restructure it. But at the end of the day, this is the way God designed it. So what am I doing? I'm showing you the standard that God set. So the LBGTs, they got their standard. The other religions have their standard, and I'm fine with that. Y'all have your own standard. But if you come into me, then we are going to base it between Genesis and Revelations. Or table of contents and maps.
You put the heavy on that. And it's true, because when you get divorced, you still have things to do with. So, especially if you have children.
I have not met a married couple, or let me rephrase, I have not met a divorced couple that still does not talk about their ex-spouse. So that right there tells you that divorce does not end the marriage. That, and you know what we don't talk about is the remarry rate. How many divorcees remarry their spouse? That number is increasingly growing. So it's not marriage that's the problem. We're the problem.
I have to say, you doing the vendor at AAFES is like so smart. It's not even funny. You have such a captive audience on a military base. It's not even funny for your business. That is genius. I had to say.
It's easy. I recommend it to all of y'all. I promise you. It's a hidden secret.
I'm sure they kept you busy in the military too, because people get married quick trying to get their checks. So.
Yeah.
You know what it is too? I noticed when we were in the military, it's like you want to build something firm so that you have something to come back to. So when people want to get married, okay, I got this. Now when I leave, I got somebody thinking about me, writing me. And when I come home, they think they're going to come home to a home. And then especially, you know, the last 15, 20 years we've spent going back and forth overseas. We've been going back overseas so much longer. You have people in the reserves being gone from home for 2 years, and they didn't, people, you know, spouses didn't sign up for that. And you know the way the Navy goes, they go out for so long, and then you come back and you don't really have a home to come back to.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all have seen the movie.
For that matter.
I don't know if y'all seen the movie Jarhead, but in the movie Jarhead, there was a scene where the soldier, well, the Marine received a video from the spouse, and the video starts off with, you know, loving family member and everything. All of a sudden, you know, the kids and everything, and then the video just flips to her having sex with her boyfriend. So let me explain something to y'all that a lot of people don't know. I was in Desert Storm. That is a true story. That is exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
Yeah. So it's, you know, when you talk about marriage and then you talk about marriage in the military, it's a whole different beast. It's a whole different thing. You know, one of the things, and I didn't think anything about it, but my sister, she's an actual counselor. She's a what is she? PhD instructor. And she talks about how when I come home, I always focus on being dad or husband. I wasn't the soldier in my house. And I never thought anything about it, even though that's what I was doing until she started saying it. you know, and so it's just a matter of you have to, you know, again, marriage is work. Marriage is work, and you have to be willing to put in that work if you want your marriage to work. And marriage, your marriage, I'm not even talking about anybody else's marriage. Your marriage, if you are married, your marriage will continue to grow. It will continue to change. So if you're doing the things that you did in your first year, in your ninth year, and you're expecting it to work, it's not going to work. I had a lady come up to my table and she said, you need to put this in your book. She said, my husband got PTSD. He's on all kind of medication. It don't work anymore, baby. You know, and so that's a change that happens in marriage. You know, finance, relocation, careers, children, your marriage change, and you must grow with the change. You must grow with the marriage. You must continue to grow. That's what I talk about, filling in the cracks. As you grow older, you have the whatever that word is, I can't even say the word. The ability, let me use a word that I only got a bachelor's degree. I'm trying to use a master's degree word. But you have the ability to grow apart, but you have that same ability to stay together. And that's what my goal is. You know, like I said, not just to survive. There's been people married longer than me, long as me. But I want you to survive. I want you to thrive. I want you to enjoy coming home. And that's what COVID has realized. That COVID has revealed to people that we've been surviving for so long. And now we have to figure out. I got a friend that said, you know, this is the last child that's now we're empty nesters. He said, I need to know if I love my wife. And I thought about that, but that is a true statement. You know, we do so much for our children. Again, another phase in the marriage. So marriage is work. You have to be willing to put in that work.
As people grow, they may not necessarily grow at the same rate, and sometimes they can grow closer, or they can grow apart.
Yes.
So it's a constant work. It's a work in progress.
Yes.
I'm not the same person I was 15 years ago.
Exactly.
So you're not either. I'm speaking general terms, of course. So you can bet that your mate isn't the same person either. So is your mate going to love you like she did or he did 15 years ago?
Right.
Because you've changed, they've changed. Maybe they starting to like new things or different things. Are you all still compatible? You know.
I'm about to tell you, I'm not the same person I was before COVID started. What you talking about?
Right.
I'm not the same.
That's another whole thing. COVID marriages, like, I'm gonna be honest, I am waiting to see the stats that come out when we finally get out of COVID, because they are not revealing the stats. You know, they are holding back on a lot of information. I understand why these governors are allowing children to go to school. I understand. For a lot of children, that's the safe haven. I understand why the governor is allowing children to go to school, because that gives the parents time away from the child. Like, it's ripple effects. It's ripple effects. So yeah, COVID marriages yeah.
That sounds like your next book right there.
You know what? Let me write that down.
You think I'm joking?
You think I'm joking? I'm actually I'm finishing up, because when I wrote this book, I didn't finish, but I had to close it. So now the part 2 is actually the continuation of the book. And so, you know, after that, maybe I will do the COVID edition.
How to survive a COVID marriage.
Wow. So the next